Welcome to Tree Talkin Time, where we talk all things tree dogs, from the smallest fights to the largest hounds, treating squirrels to bears and everything in between. And from time to time, we might even run a little fast game.
Well, I guess probably one of the biggest cats we ever killed would probably be a good story. So it was, I think it was the second year. No, yeah, back up a little bit. It would have been the second year that we were running bobcats. I had Sadie was going good on them, and I had Cinder, who was young and just getting started. And we had one of the biggest tracks I'd ever seen crossing the road, both ways. And the snow conditions were tough, and we really couldn't tell which way was the right end of it. So I took the dogs and went in on the track, and we ended up crossing a pretty good-sized creek a couple times, and the dogs took it and left on it for a ways. And then pretty soon here they come back, running the track back the other way. So at that point I assumed that we went the wrong way. So the dogs got to a point where the cat had crossed the creek, and it was pretty deep, and there was no logs or anything to cross. It was probably in the single digits that morning.
Oof.
And I had already spent enough time on that end of the track that I didn't want to waste any more time. So I just picked the dog up under each arm and carried him across the creek, waded the creek.
Jeez.
It was up,
But that was
up
cold.
to my thighs. it was really cold, but back when we first started, I was hardcore. I didn't care. I did whatever I had to do to try to make things happen and keep things going. So I got the dogs across, and they took the track and up across the road. And by the time I got out to the road, it was like I was wearing tin pipes on my legs.
Yeah, I bet.
My pants were froze solid. So we had run in that area the year before, and I kind of remembered what the cat had done. So I had a plan to go up this hollow and kind of get, we were kind of cutting the way the dogs were going. We were cutting a corner. So we kind of went up this valley and started up a steep grade, and the dogs had already got across there and were headed up towards the top. And we probably got, I don't know, within 500 yards of them, and I heard Sadie and Cinder open up, and I told the guy, I said, that cat's up. We'll just kind of stand here in the open and watch for a little bit. Well, they circled on top of that hill for a little bit, and I said, let's move in and look to see if we can get a little closer to the circling. And about that time, they come out of there, and they come down the hill about 150 yards to our left and down across the open woods down to the valley, and we listened to them. And they run clear back almost out to the road, and there was a little hemlock thicket there that they started circling in. So I told the guy, so let's go over and stand on the track where they come down off this hill. Mm-hmm. That way, if it comes back, we'll be in position. And we just stood there and listened to the chase. It was probably 10 minutes of short circling in that hemlock thicket. And pretty soon I heard them. They were coming back towards us. And it was, I don't know, the level of excitement for me. It really increased because I could hear the dogs coming, and they were steady bark. Well, then you could hear their intensity pick up.
Mm-hmm.
And I'm guessing at that point they had seen the cat.
Oh, yeah.
Because they really got the barking, and then it was almost like the last few barks were like trying to bite it, that last real quick barks, and they were treed.
Nice.
And at that point, I think that was the first cat we had ever treed. And I was so dang excited coming down off that hill. I tripped and fell and tumbling. And my dad had come in from the road and had a young kid with him. And he got to the tree before us, and they wanted to get a shot. And I told him, I said, on the radio, I said, I want to get down there and see that cat before you guys shoot it. So,
yeah, no kidding.
They had to talk the kid down pretty good before we got down there, and we got down, and it looked like it was the biggest cat we've ever killed.
Wow.
Even to this day.
Did you weigh him?
Yeah, it ended up being 36 pounds.
Nice. That's a nice cat. I mean, that's a nice cat in general, but especially for being Pennsylvania.
Right. And I've heard a lot of stories of 40-pounders and stuff, and I always try to be pretty conservative about the cat when I look at it. But to this day, 36 pounds, that's the biggest one we weighed.
Nice.
So,
well, I mean, like I said, we're not Maine, we're not Montana.
Right.
The further you go north, obviously, we know everything gets bigger, so you're gonna get bigger cats up there. But 36 pounds is very respectable cat for Pennsylvania.
So yeah, we got some good pictures of it and knocked it down, and that just fueled my fire a little bit more, and things escalated from there.
Oh, I bet. So you said that was your second year running, so that would have been mid 2000s, like
Yeah, I think that would have been
or pushing late.
2008.
Okay.
It was about 2008, I think.
Okay.
And then 2007 was the first year we ran cats.
Gotcha. Well, Dan, why don't you introduce yourself?
Oh, I'm Dan Pearce, and I'm from Northwest Pennsylvania, and got into mountain curs about 16 years ago, and I try to hunt everything I can with them. Squirrels, coons, bobcats. Really gotten a passion for having curs here,
Mm-hmm.
and mainly squirrel hunt as much as I can, but
Yeah.
I just can't kick the bobcat hunting bug.
Well, I know about you said about 2006, 2007, 2008. It's kind of when you started really getting into them and then hunting the cats and everything. That's what stood out to me because we're talking old forum days. This is pre-Facebook. I graduated high school in 2008, so and that's right around the time that I kind of got involved. So I'm on all these old forums just cruising. I wasn't real active, but lurking, and here's your pictures of everyone else is treeing squirrels and coon, and here you're treeing bobcats. And I was like, this is awesome. And then I'm like, he's in Pennsylvania. I'm like, this is even cooler. So
it was kind of almost by accident, really. I mean, I didn't know much about bobcat hunting. I grew up coyote and fox hunting with hounds, and we had beagles growing up. And bobcat hunting wasn't even a thing when I was a kid. We weren't allowed to hunt them up until I don't know, it would have been early 2000s, maybe 2001 was the first year. Somewhere right around there was the first year they opened the season as a lottery.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, that's what I'm saying. And back then it was a lottery. So even because did you guide or did you just take a lot of people that had tags?
So when we first started, the year that we started, I had Sadie, and I was reading up on it, and the lottery comes to the bobcat, and I reached out to family and friends. I said, why doesn't everybody send for a license? And if somebody draws, we'll take Sadie up and try it.
Mm-hmm.
Really had no idea other than our coyote hunting experience background. So the very first year, my dad drew a tag.
That's awesome.
The first year he applied. So we went up, and he ended up getting the bobcat killed in front of Sadie the first year. And that day, we came home, and there was a guy at my dad's shop. He does domestic beetles, and the guy stopped to pick up a deer head and seen a bobcat and was asking about it. He said, well, both my son and my wife have bobcat tags. Would you be interested in taking us? So at that time, I didn't know, what to charge. I was kind of caught off guard, and I said, well, yeah, I'd like to try. So we just went as friends and went bobcat hunting. And actually, that guy there, his other boy is the one that killed the 36-pounder the following year.
Nice.
So then we started looking into it and got more involved and got our guide permits for the following years. And for, I think there was 4 years there, we were guiding, and it was still a lottery.
Mm-hmm.
And then after that, it went to over the counter and changed things quite a bit on us.
Still, there's still a lot of people, even though it's out over the counter, still most people don't have dogs that are capable of running cats.
And the situation now is you've got 3 weeks to hunt them.
Mm-hmm.
It's not really hardly worth having a dog just straight for bobcats because the season's so short. And I personally don't live in an area that has bobcats, so we have to travel an hour and a half, 2 hours to get in the country that has cats.
Yeah.
So
no, I'm the same way. We don't have cats down here.
Right, and you get off season. It's just hard to go up and spend time training dogs.
I've talked to like 1 or 2 people that live in Pennsylvania that have cat dogs. That's a lot of work to put in for a 3-week season.
It is, and I've been fortunate. I never, when I got curs, I never set out for that.
Mm-hmm.
It was just something really that nobody else was doing, and when we first started coyote hunting, we kind of were in the same position. There wasn't a lot of guys around. There was a couple guys around running coyotes. Now this is clear back in the early '90s.
Okay.
that we started coyote hunting, and it was nice to be on the forefront of, at least in this area.
Mm-hmm.
You know, most people didn't even know we had coyotes, and it kind of was the same thing with bobcats when we first started running. Everybody's like, "Oh, you're running bobcats," and
Yeah.
then they would ask what kind of dogs I was running, and I'd tell them, and they just give me a goofy look. And I think that fueled my fire for running curs even more. You
Yeah.
know, I kind of like doing my own thing.
Mm-hmm.
I realized I'm far from being the first person to ever do it, or even that few people that do it, but there wasn't a lot of people doing it, and
Oh yeah.
it
Even
caught a lot
now,
of people off guard.
there's still not a lot of people that run curs
Right,
on
right.
cats kind of heavily. Like typically, at least it seems to me, when season rolls around, you shift your entire focus to cats, and for that 3 weeks, you
That's
put
all I
some
do.
pressure
Yeah,
on cats.
yeah, pretty much stay at camp, hunt every day.
It speaks to the versatility of your dogs and the breed as a whole. It's something that's different. Where hounds, a lot of times, it's they're good at one thing. Like I had a plot hound, and he wanted to be a bear dog. He didn't want anything to do with coon after we started him on bear. So I think
Yeah,
it's
and I can see that. And I kind of, it's hard to get any dog that excels at everything. And
mhm. Yeah.
to be honest, I've never had that. Um, my first cur, Sadie, she was probably as good an all around dog as I've ever owned here.
Okay.
It didn't really seem to matter whether I squirrel hunted her, coon hunted her, bobcat hunted her. She was good at all of it, but
Hmm.
I don't know that she was ever exceptional at any of it.
Okay.
Uh, but every single dog I've had here has been about the same way. Actually, some of them have excelled more at one thing than uh, than the others.
Hmm.
Allie, for instance, she's 10 years old now. She never made a squirrel dog. I tried and tried and tried. And she'll tree a squirrel, killed squirrels with her, but she just never really cut it. And she was a decent coon dog, but she was definitely better at bobcats than anything.
Okay. That's interesting.
She's got some age on her now. And then actually, her mother, Cinder, was was kind of the same way. She started off treeing squirrels really well, and as soon as I started running bobcats with her, she almost forgot what a squirrel was.
Yeah.
And
They're like
I think
these
that
dogs are
created,
like me. That they get that adrenaline rush. Squirrels just don't cut it
well,
anymore.
I think I created a little bit of a monster with her because when that happened, she decided she wanted to start running deer.
Uh.
And she liked that fast game and
Hmm.
running that track. And I had a heck of a time getting her broke off a deer. And I still, hindsight, attribute that to starting to run bobcats with her when she was young. She
Gotcha.
would have been just a year old when I started running her on cats.
Hmm.
And maybe I'm wrong. You know, I'm always trying to figure out what I did to create
Hmm.
what I got. You know, where in my process of getting them started, where did I create an issue?
Yeah. Well, let's go back, circle back to Sadie, and how did you get Sadie? Because she was a little different looking than what you typically see when you see a mountain cur.
Right. And she wasn't registered. She was the local Amish had her.
Okay.
And I really don't know. I tried to track down. They said that her parents had papers, but the Amish didn't keep them. And
Hmm.
tried to track down what she was and her breeding, and I never really got a straight answer.
Gotcha.
Um, I couldn't tell you what's in her. She had a white head, and at that point, I didn't know anything about any breeding, or I hadn't even really looked when I bought her. You
Hmm.
know, I just it's a mountain cur, and that's what I want. And honestly, she started a whole raft of my friends and family getting dogs, cur
Hmm.
dogs, because of how she was.
Didn't your
Um,
brother or somebody own like a dog that looked real similar to her?
yeah, Gunner. Again, Gunner's still around,
Was he
but
related to her?
yeah, it would have been out of her littermate brother.
Okay. I just
And he
remember.
was an excellent squirrel dog
Mhm.
and a pretty good coon and cat dog. I mean, we killed some cats in front of him, killed some coons,
Nice.
but yeah. So once I started getting into, mainly, I guess it was the internet forums and stuff, I
Hmm.
started reading about bloodlines and looking for dogs. And I still didn't really know much about anything, but I got Cinder from a dog trader. Didn't
Okay.
know anything about her background or paperwork or anything.
But she was registered, right?
She is registered, uh, and she was mostly Franklin, Alan Franklin's Thunder and Jukebox and Streaks Mountain Jack.
Okay. Yeah, I mean, for where you live, that's not uncommon.
Right.
You're not that far from Allen.
No.
What, maybe 4 or 5 hours at the most?
Maybe 4.
Okay. That's kind of what I figured.
Yeah, it's not too awful far.
Yeah.
But there's a lot of that breeding around this part of the country.
I mean, Ohio, West Virginia, Western PA that's what if you go and just look for a mountain cur, most likely it's going to be heavy thunder or jukebox.
Correct.
I mean, you have to look and go get something from somewhere else if you want something otherwise.
Right. Which is me, because I like to be different.
Because that's what you did when you got Junior, right?
Yeah, right. I started looking for stuff that wasn't, and it's nothing against, Cinder's laying on the couch here beside me. But she had more drive than anything I had ever really been around. You could not run that dog down. So I wasn't looking for a change. I just wanted something different.
Yeah.
So I got to looking into the old stock busher bred dogs.
Mm-hmm.
And funny story on Junior. Somebody had posted him for sale on a forum, and I had looked at it. And I actually showed my wife, and she kind of rolled her eyes, and I was like, "Oh, I'm not really looking. I think it's a nice looking dog."
Mm-hmm.
So every day when I get home from work, I'd get on there and I'd be looking. Well, she was watching me, and the one day she's like, "If you really like the look of him, why don't you go take a look at him?"
There you go.
So I just picked up the phone and gave the guy a call, and he said he'd be around that weekend. So we drove down, and I brought him home. And that's the last time she ever told me anything like that.
Where'd you have to go to get him?
He was in PA.
Oh, okay.
Originally, he's out of Tim Cope's Grizz Dog and J-Max Hanna. And I think the guy that had him was John Nunemaker.
Okay. I knew he went back to Tim's dogs.
Right.
I couldn't remember exactly which male.
I think he was down by Uniontown somewhere. I can't remember. That's been 13 years ago now.
Yeah. That's still not that bad. That's still not like, going all the way to North Carolina, like to Tim's or something.
Right. Which, wouldn't have been out of the question. I just happened to. I really wasn't looking that hard when I got him.
Mm-hmm.
But when the wife gives you permission, take advantage, right?
Exactly. I always really liked his dogs. I mean, they're these big, mostly black or black brindle dogs, and all old stock busher breeding, which just looks different than a lot of what you see.
I do like the black brindle dogs, but I haven't been able to get one out of one of my litters here yet.
So where did you go after Junior?
So Junior and Cinder are only like 6 months apart in age, and I raised those two and ran cats with them, and I think those two probably caused more hair loss in me than anything else in my career. I think at that point I decided I wasn't going to try to start two dogs, especially running cats and doing everything I was trying to do. I was trying to squirrel hunt and cat hunt and coon hunt with them, and they stressed me out. So, but as dogs get older, you want to start something else before you have dogs that are too old to do anything. So I ended up breeding those two.
Okay.
And I just had the one litter, and I kept the female out of it, and that's where Allie came from.
There you go.
At that point, that was probably the right around that time was probably the high point of our bobcat hunting. It was the last year that it was a lottery, and there was cats everywhere, and our name was out, and the season was from October to ran the same as our regular fur takers, so it was like 20th of October to like 20th of February. So we had all winter to hunt and wait for good conditions.
Yeah. And
the last year there, we killed 18 cats. We took 20 guys, and we killed 18 bobcats.
That's impressive.
And at that point, mainly Cinder and Sadie, those two had become, and to this day, they're still the duo that we ever had.
Mm-hmm.
I pretty much turned them loose on a cat and expected them to either catch it on the ground, go underground, or tree it.
Now, that's something that I
And
wanted to get to eventually, and since you mentioned it, we'll talk about it.
okay,
Do you tend to tree more, bay more, hole more? Like, what do you seem to do the most?
well, we definitely hole more than anything.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, and I think that's been, you know, a lot of people's Achilles heel is they give up. You know, we might try on 3 or 4 tracks a day, and 2 of them or 3 of them or all 4 of them might go underground, and then you just go back after it tomorrow.
Yeah.
Um, Sometimes they were underground before we ever even cut the dogs loose, and
Mm-hmm.
I honestly think that it's gotten worse over the years. Also depends on snow conditions. You know, deep snow, hard to get them to run at all.
Mm-hmm.
If any, they might jump and run 100 yards and go under a rock.
Gotcha.
At one point, we were treeing more than we were catching on the ground.
It's
And
interesting.
then we had one year there where we didn't tree any and caught everything on the ground. I don't know, it varies back and forth.
Okay.
Uh,
Because
but
from just talking to different people, it seems like most people tend to catch more on the ground than tree.
at this point, I would say we probably caught more on the ground.
Mm-hmm.
But there was a time that I don't know that it was that way.
Okay.
We haven't treed many in the last couple of years, and I think that, to be honest, I think it attributes to the dogs. You know, they say real good bobcat dogs are really hard to come by,
Mm-hmm.
and the dogs I'm running now are definitely capable of it, but they aren't as efficient as like Sadie and Cinder were.
Well, like you said, if you're running from October through February, whenever conditions are right,
Mm-hmm.
where now you're just putting those 3 weeks
Yeah,
of season in, you
you
know,
run no matter what, and that does make a big difference because when conditions are good, you catch them
mm-hmm.
better. Now we just if we can find a cat, we run it. You
Yeah.
know, we don't have time to wait for the conditions to get any better. So
Mm-hmm.
yeah, we treed one. I can't remember last season. Last season was kind of tough for us, but the season before that, the last day we treed one.
Okay.
But the last couple of years have been a little tough, and the crusty snow and stuff. The cats can
Mm-hmm.
run on top of that crust, and the dogs can't.
Yep.
I don't know if you could run anything that could catch them in those kind of conditions.
Mm-hmm.
Um, it's hard. It's hard on the dogs because then they'll feet get tore up and they're sore for a couple of days, and those are tough years when it's like that.
Definitely. And our snow here the last couple years has been very unpredictable anyway, and late.
Right, right. I think we've had crust the last 2 years,
Mm-hmm.
almost to the point where we couldn't hardly run the dogs on it. And then after the crust went away, we got super deep snow this year, and then we were finding a fair amount of cats at the beginning of the season when the snow was only a couple inches deep. But then once that snow got to about a foot deep, they just quit covering ground, and it's a lot of country.
Mm-hmm.
They just weren't crossing the roads, and we didn't have near as many options.
Yeah. Now, how did you get started when you started hunting cats? How did you get your dogs started on cats? Did you just walk tracks out, or?
Yeah, yeah. So I've had that question: is how do you get them to chase a cat? And I was like, well, have you ever met a dog that wouldn't chase a cat? I mean, unless it was raised around them. But yeah. So I think that was probably one of the biggest hurdles, and I know a lot of my friends and stuff have struggled is getting a mountain cur to take a cold trail and stick with it
Mm-hmm.
and jump a cat. And Sadie was, I guess, kind of a exception to that because we just found a bobcat track one day, and I was following it with her, and she kept coming back. And I'd get her to go on, and she'd go, 100 yards and come back. We were crawling through Laurel and just miserable trying to track a bobcat through there. And I finally got to the point where I was like, you know what? I'm not doing this anymore. She's either going to do it or not. And she took the track. Well, this time she went further than she had before, and I don't know why, or I guess maybe the track had just gotten that much better. But the next thing, she had it jumped, and my dad missed it, I think, 4 times. And it ended up getting away from us. But that was our first experience with it, and pretty much from then on, you could just put her on a track and she would go.
Okay.
And I kind of used her as my trainer for the rest of the dogs.
Mm-hmm.
But we, my dad and I both, we walk more than most people. A lot of folks, dump a dog on a track and they either do it or they don't. And I've never been like that. I mean,
Mm-hmm.
even running coyotes, we went right with the dogs, and if they did make a mistake, we were there to correct it. And they just keep getting better and better. You help them out through
Yep.
that stuff, and to the point where you turn them loose and you don't see them again until the cat's running.
Mm-hmm.
But
Interesting.
a lot of curs, I don't think that's been a struggle. I think for most of the guys, even Cinder. Cinder was never a great cold trailer, but if I could get her with Sadie, she would take it. Now Junior, that was different. You put him on a track, he would take it. He always was good sticking with the track.
Okay.
And the other two since then have followed suit.
Mm-hmm.
So, and I try to strive for that, and that was part of the reason, as much talking as I'd done, even with Tim, I wanted a dog that would take a track and stick with it and not give up.
Yeah.
And that was kind of why I steered towards the older stock dogs, hoping that would work out that way. And for the one I got, it did.
Good. Yeah, and I know that's so I have not done a lot of cat hunting. I went one weekend this year, and I've been meaning to get up for like the last 4 or 5 years. And I've bought my tag every year, and something always comes up, and I just never get up there. So I went up this year, and we found some cat tracks, and we walked them a little bit, but our dogs just I don't know if they couldn't smell it or what, but never warmed it up enough.
To it. Yeah, I mean, and the other thing is, if you spend any time on a cat track, which I love that part of it. I mean, I track a cat by myself just to learn what they do and see what they do, but they do some crazy stuff that sometimes it's just amazing a dog could ever figure it out without help.
Oh, yeah.
They get in the rocks and they'll jump, a 10-foot span from one rock to the next into the next, and they might not ever get back on the ground for 70, 80 yards.
Mm-hmm.
And dog that's got its nose on the ground gets to that rock, and that's the end of the trail.
Yep.
You can't sort it out, and they either think that, especially on a cold track, they typically aren't going to tree, and they'll just quit and come back.
Mm-hmm.
And I think a lot of people think, oh, it just went in a hole. If they weren't right there to see what happened, they would never see what that cat did to figure it out in the end.
Yeah.
And I've seen stuff like that. I don't know how many times. That and defense exclosures in the national forest and stuff.
Mm-hmm.
Those have always been a thorn in our side because the dogs can't get through them.
Oh, I bet.
And the cats just go right through them. Like you wouldn't think a 30-pound pom could go through a 4-inch square hole in a fence, but they can with ease. And then the dog's hung up, and you got to go figure it out.
Yep. I never even thought about that because where I bobcat hunted, we didn't run into any of that. But where I bear hunt down in West Virginia, there's a couple areas that are fenced, and I never even thought about that.
Yeah, we run into it a couple different areas. There's quite a few fences, and that there's nothing that just even a hot track. There's nothing to score a chase any faster than that. If you give them cats. You might not get to the dog for 20 minutes. You give them cats a 20-minute lead, you'll never catch them.
Mm-hmm. Now, are your dogs open on cats, or are they silent?
They're open on a hot track.
Okay.
Every single one of them was silent on a cold track when they were young, and the older they got, the more open they got.
Interesting. I've heard of the opposite happening.
Right. I don't know what changed, but every one of them, they all started opening on a colder track as the older they got. But I guess I never really had a preference with Garmin's. Kind of keep track of them on a cold track. Being a dog guy all my life, I kind of like to hear them barking, but
yeah,
I always kind of had the thought that maybe if they were quiet on the cold track, they would sneak up and get closer to the cat before they jumped it and catch it and run it up a tree. I don't know that I ever seen where that was the case.
Okay.
Probably a couple times we might have had a couple pop-ups, but I've seen dogs that were open on track do the same thing. So
yeah, we talked a little bit before we started this, and your dad's a plot guy. So what's up with the plot mountain cur rivalry here? Who's better?
Yeah, it's an ongoing thing. Which is better? Well, of course, mountain curs are. No, we kind of kept track over the years, and uh, honestly, it's been a split about right down the middle
That's
with
pretty
the number
funny.
of cats we've taken with each of them. Uh, yeah, both my dad and I are pretty competitive, so we like to jab each other quite a bit. But
Hmm.
we both had good dogs in both breeds, and dogs that could really catch cats in both breeds. So we typically don't run them together. We have, but usually Dad and I take turns. He'll run one track and I'll run the next, and we just go back and forth. And if everyone's lucky enough to get a cat that won't go down a hole, we're in good shape.
There you go. Now, did your dad get into running the plots after you got the mountain
After,
cur? Okay.
yeah, yeah. So I had Sadie, and he killed his cat in front of Sadie, and I tried to talk him into getting a mountain cur, and he told me that he had always wanted a plot hound, and he just went that direction. And I tried to convince him otherwise, but there was no change in his mind.
Well, at least he went with
So,
like plots and not like walkers or something.
well, I think he's kind of in the same boat I am. There wasn't a lot of people running plots around, and he wanted to be different.
Yeah. No, I like a good
So,
plot.
yeah, he's had two females in particular that I like.
Hmm.
The second one, I like her more than the first one, but the first one was probably a better cat dog than the second one. So, but yeah, we work together well. We just take our turns
Hmm.
and do what we can to help each other out, and it's worked well for 15 years or however
Nice.
long it's been.
That's awesome.
So, a lot of fun. I'll give you a little story about my dad on a cat, which I don't think he wanted to tell me the story after he witnessed it, but we had a cat jump to one day, a nice big palm, and it was in a familiar area, and I think it was Sadie, Junior, and Cinder were all three on it. And he had got ahead. The cats always seem to run this hillside down to these big rock ledges and cliffs and circle. There's some laurel and stuff there. So he got down there. He was in there by himself, and he just walked up in to kind of watch, see what was going to happen. Well, the dogs were coming, and he heard something and looked. Well, here come the cat, and it come up about 25 yards from him. He said, went right to the face of that rock ledge, climbed the tree about 50 feet, jumped out of the top of the tree onto the top of the ledge, and then took off.
Jeez.
The dogs come down, run down around the end of that rock, got over, hit that tree. They all stopped and looked up the tree, and without hesitation, they took off, run back around the end of the rock cliff, up to the top, picked up the track, and left on it, and kept
Wow.
running it. And he said, I don't know how they didn't know that they should have treed.
Yeah.
Technically,
You would have
they
thought they would
probably
have.
should have. I mean, that would have been what I expected. He said they never even acted like they were going to tree. They just got down and took off down the end of the rocks and up around the top, and it was like they never missed a beat. They
That's
might have lost
incredible.
a minute or two on the track, but he
Hmm.
said he wouldn't have believed it if he didn't see it. And I know that pained him to tell me that my dogs were that smart, but so
Yep. The hound cur rivalry is strong as ever, no matter what. It seems.
right. And I mean, I always say that I like the curs because they think.
Hmm.
A lot of hounds, and I don't want anybody to take this the wrong way, but they do. They just do. They
Yep.
run a track to a tree, and that's their goal.
Hmm.
To get to that tree at the end. And the curs run for a different reason. They're wanting to catch that animal. They're thinking about what it's doing, and that was Cinder to a T when she was younger. You would watch them run a track, and I could watch it on the Garmin, and all of a sudden she would cut off out of the circle by herself, and she'd be treed. She wouldn't be running the track anymore. She was trying to catch the cat,
Hmm.
cutting corners, and
Yep.
I think that was why she was so good at catching them there. Why Sadie and her, because Sadie wouldn't lose the track, and Cinder would take chances and try to catch it, and
Okay.
they would just catch them.
So if she missed it, Sadie would stay true to that track and
Yeah,
bring it around. And
right. Yep, and they'd never miss a beat.
nice. Sounds like a good duo.
Hawk's kind of, I mean, he's 5, actually, he'll be 6, or he just turned 6. I never ran him on cats till he was 4. So,
Okay.
in fact, I wasn't ever going to run him on cats, and I had a change of heart here 2 years ago, and So he's still learning. He likes to run a cat though. So
And we never really covered, but Hawk is out of Alley.
he's out of Alley in Dorton's Oklahoma Mohawk,
Mm-hmm.
and great squirrel dog. I don't coon hunt him hardly at all.
Okay.
But I started running him on cats, and he picked it up just like the other ones. Put him on a cold track. It's, in fact, surprisingly, the first cold track I ever put him on, he took it, and I figured I'd be pulling him off a squirrel tree somewhere,
Mm-hmm.
and he actually did a really nice job on it, and
Nice.
it ended up getting in the rocks on us.
That sucks, but it's just another day.
I was gonna say that's pretty common,
Mm-hmm.
at least the country we hunt.
What's it like up there?
It varies. It's not real rugged, and there's not a lot of places it's really hard access, but there is a lot of rocks,
Mm-hmm.
patches of laurel here and there. But the rocks are, I think the rocks are really what attracts the cats.
Yeah.
They can get under them and get between them. And there's lots of feed there for them. If you can mix rocks and laurel together, then that's the perfect spot usually.
Yeah.
But we don't. The country that we typically hunt is not really big, to the point where we're 3 miles from the truck at any given point.
Okay. Where do you think they struggle that maybe the plots don't, or maybe anything else? Or
I guess the cold trailing might have been a little bit of their weaker point at the plots, probably.
Mhm.
You could put the plot dogs on a little bit colder track and usually stick with it. But
okay.
they're still pretty decent at it, I guess. But I would say that's a weak point. And the other one, and it depended on which dog I was running at the time, but sometimes these cats get in a patch of laurel and run like a rabbit.
Mm-hmm.
And after they've been over their track about 4 times, I think the plot seem to do a little bit better job of keeping a track straight than the curs would.
Okay.
That would have probably been the other spot that they struggled with a little bit. They just even a good rabbit dog can struggle when they start circling and on their own tracks 4 or 5 or 6 times. Yeah, I guess those are the two points. But other than that, I don't know that we've had a whole lot of difference. And and even that those are extreme situations too.
Mm-hmm.
They can circle a cat pretty good.
Nice. I think the way you hunt is vastly different than a way a lot of guys hunt. Like, you'll see some guys here and there post a picture of a bobcat that they treat, but I think a lot of those are incidentals. Most people don't go out targeting cats with mountain curs, so
Right.
that's why I wanted to have you on, is just because it's vastly different than the way most people hunt and use mountain curs. So
I appreciate that. I appreciate you having me on. I really take pride in them. I know they're not superstars or anything, but we've been pretty successful with them over the years, and I try pretty hard for them. If something happens and I don't understand it, you can bet that I'm going to walk in there. I don't care if it's a mile. I'm going to figure out what happened.
mm-hmm.
I'm always investigating. I don't like to leave anything to the unknown.
Yeah.
And you learn a lot. You learn a lot by doing that.
Oh yeah, definitely. Because like you said, sitting at the truck wondering, you'll never figure it out. You can wonder and you can think this happened or that happened, but you never know.
Right. Until you, like I said, I'm going to go in and see.
Do you think dogs that were better on squirrel or versus coon made a better cat dog, or did it not really matter?
I think dogs that, I think the dogs that were better on cats were better on coon. How about that?
Okay.
It seemed like the more they did on cats and the more they liked cats, the less they really cared about a squirrel, which is the main reason that I didn't hunt Hawk on cats, because he was my main squirrel dog. And after seeing what had happened with the other dogs, I decided that I wasn't going to run him on cats because I didn't want to take away from the squirrels.
Because you've done some competition hunting with, haven't you?
Yeah. Mostly unsuccessful, but I've done a little bit of winning here and there.
Mm-hmm.
But that was, the young female I have now, Nida. She's been the best dog in competition I've had, and that's why I've been a little hesitant to try to cat hunt her even.
Okay. Now, how's she bred?
She is old stock. I think her mother goes back to Mohawk, and her father goes back to River Road Tank.
Okay. How old is she?
She is 3. She just
Okay.
turned 3. But she's a really nice squirrel dog, and I probably will. Because Allie's 10 years old. She'll be 11 in September.
Mm-hmm.
She's on the verge of retiring from the bobcat hunting. So I'm gonna have to, if I'm gonna have something to run with Hawk, I'm gonna have to make a move here next year or so. But she's another one. I don't know if she'll take a cold track or not.
Mm-hmm. But that just means you're gonna have to start another pup. That way you got a squirrel dog.
Right.
You always got that young dog that you're squirrel hunting, and then once they get a couple years old, you can switch them over to cats.
Well, my intentions were to have a litter of pups possibly this year, but it didn't work out. So maybe next year.
Now, is that out of Hawk and Oneida?
Hawk and Oneida.
Okay.
Yeah. Kind of like to keep what I got going here, but the only time I'm going to have any pups is just when I'm ready for one. So.
Yeah. That's a lot of nice old stock blood there.
Right. Now, like I said, I've gone that route. I just tend to like the looks and the attitude and stuff better. I don't want to lose that drive that Cinder had there. It's definitely been passed on for sure, but there's other traits there on the other side that I like quite a bit more. So
now, if I was looking to look for a mountain cur, and even when I had mountain curs, I looked very heavily at the Busher dogs because I thought they were really good looking dogs, and I liked the bigger dogs. I liked the fact that a lot of them were more coon dogs than squirrel dogs.
Right.
And I tend to coon hunt more than squirrel hunt, so I always kind of looked at them, and I never did pull the trigger and get one, but if I was going to go that route, that's probably the route I would go too.
Right. Yeah, I'm pretty happy with what I've got here now at this point. But they all got their faults. It don't matter what line you're running.
Exactly.
Someday maybe I'll find the perfect dog, but I doubt it.
I asked on Instagram or Facebook or whatever, why are hounds so addictive? And somebody responded because we're always looking for that perfect one. So it's like you just accumulate so many dogs because you're looking for the perfect one. So you have one that does, this and that right, and then you have one that does something else right. And he's like, you're always just looking for that perfection.
Yeah, if you could mix them all together and make the one you want, I have something.
Yeah. Unfortunately, it just never lines up like that.
And I doubt that I'll ever see anything even close because I'm a little bit different than a lot of guys that run dogs. Once I got one, I'll make whatever I can make out of it, and it'll stay here. I don't typically sell dogs, and they'll live out their life here. They'll be good enough at one thing or another that I can utilize them and take a little bit of pride in what you raise and train, and even if it's not perfect, which even the best guys out there don't have the perfect dog either. So kind of take it in stride and utilize them for what they're good at. I completely quit hunting some of the dogs on squirrels just because that wasn't their thing. So I would coon hunt them, utilize them for what they're capable of.
Nope, I understand that.
Allie was going to be my last bobcat dog. I was ready to hang it up a couple years ago. Cat population had dropped, at least in the area that we hunt, and it seemed like every cat we dumped on would go down a hole. And I said, you know what, I'm just going to hunt Allie till she's ready to retire, but I just couldn't do it. I couldn't do it. I had to try Hawk out, and he took right off on it. So I'm glad I didn't quit.
Yeah.
It's something that gets in your blood once you've had some success.
Definitely. Didn't you the last couple of years take like a TV show or something?
I did. Bone Cold TV
went
with us. Actually had them with me for 2 seasons, and I'm not sure where the footage stands at this point, but they'll be putting an episode together.
Cool.
For us. I think we have at least three kills on that awesome. They got to film. So yeah, I'm patiently waiting for something to come out.
Yeah. No, I just remember seeing you sharing a photo or something of that, and I thought that was pretty cool.
Yeah, I think they sent me a photo that I could share, and Yeah, they had actually been after me for a few years, and it's kind of got to the point now where I try to limit, because I could be booked all the time, and I don't really want to be like that. I don't.
Hmm.
I'm not a guide to make money or anything. Uh, it's, you know, friends and family and people that friends of a friend or something is about as far as I go now with taking clients.
Yeah.
Just because there's plenty of people that want to go,
Oh yeah.
and they had been trying to get me to take them for a couple years, so I finally broke down, and I really had a good time hunting with them guys. Though
Good.
they were a blast. So,
Very cool. I look forward to seeing that then.
yeah. I actually was just texting with Chad the other day, and I should have asked him. We were going to see something for a bobcat hunt here pretty soon.
They'll probably wait till like middle of this winter when it's that's typically the
Yeah,
way the TV shows work.
right. Yeah, they usually set those up so they fall at the right time of year.
Yep. Well, you have anything else to add? Have a good story that
Oh, I could tell stories all day if I could think of it. They put me on the spot and my mind goes blank. um, yeah, I do. The guy's passed away now. He was a good friend of ours growing up. He was a farmer that lived around the corner from my dad, and we had cut a track one morning, and it was just stadium cinder we had put on it, and it had left the road and went under this old big fallen down camp, and we went over in there, and the dogs took the track through underneath the building off into the brush, and didn't take too long, and they had it jump, and it just kept running back and forth across the road, right there by the camp, and nobody could seem to get in the right spot to see it, and it would run down the road and throw the dogs off, and then cut back in, and it went around for probably a half hour there. They ran it. And they said it would get on the road and throw them off and backtrack itself, but almost every time it would circle back past that old fallen down camp, which had basically fallen right down on top of itself. The roof was still intact.
Mhm.
And it would go right under it and then out a different way every time. So finally, I told the guy, I said, go up there and stand on top of that camp. He's like, what? I said, get right up on top where you can see. And he did. And it wasn't 5 minutes, the cat come running in there, and he shot it. And I was walking into him there, and he got down off the camp and come walking over to me, and his eyes were as big as watermelons. He's like, that thing's as big as a coyote. I was like, well, what did you expect? He's like, I said, did you expect a health cat? And he said, well, kind of. And it ended up being 35 pounds.
Nice.
But he was completely shocked. He didn't realize bobcats got that big, and he just couldn't believe his eyes when he seen it coming through, coming right at him. But yeah, that was an interesting thing, and it's always, as much as I love the dogs, and that's what it's all about for me. Seeing somebody that's never even seen a bobcat get the chance to take one,
Yeah,
that's a close second.
definitely.
We've taken kids and girls, and I've had a couple 12-year-olds shoot cats out of trees, and I had one 12-year-old shoot a cat off the ground in a laurel at like 10 yards with the dog baying in its face. That was pretty intense situation there, but
Yeah.
yeah, I don't think, like I said, after the dogs, that probably comes a close second.
And I bet you're just chomping at the bit for your daughter to have that chance.
Yeah, she's got a few years yet. So, but yeah, typically I don't carry a gun, and I honestly don't have a whole lot of desire to shoot one myself anymore. I did take one this year, the first one in 10 years that I actually took myself.
Okay.
But yeah,
Yeah, you
it's a
hunted
lot of fun getting.
hawk this by himself, didn't you?
Actually, Hawk and Allie chased that cat that
Okay.
I killed this year, and then Hawk ended up getting hurt like 2 days later. Got a stick jammed into his chest and put him
Ooh.
out for the season. So yeah, that hurt pretty bad. It was like the first week, and so I lost him for most of the season this year. But,
Bummer.
but Allie can still do it. She just doesn't do it as fast or
Yeah.
as often. So,
That's awesome though. That still getting out there.
yep. She'll be, like you said, she'll be 11 in September. So I'm hoping one more season.
You said Cinder's still alive?
Cinder is still alive. Yep.
How old is
Cinder
she?
Junior. Cinder is she'll be 14 in November, and Junior just turned 13 in May.
Okay.
But they're enjoying their retirement now. They don't chase anything anymore except for treats around on the floor.
Gotcha. Well, Dan, I really appreciate you coming on here and talking about your dogs and bobcat hunting with them, and I've enjoyed it. I'm sure everybody else will as well.
All right, thank you.
You can find me on Facebook and Instagram at Tree Talkin Media, and until next time, keep them talking in the timber.